He's an experienced architect and VoIP specialist, a frequent contributor to open source projects. And he's going to present the CGRateS SupplierS module, which will enhance your FreeSWITCH-based installation. The title of his talk is Least Cost Routing with QoS and Cost Sorting using CGRateS. Give a big round of applause to Christian.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Travis. And thank you guys for having us again here. It's always a pleasure. So, my name is Dan Bogos. I'm a co-founder of CGRateS project. For those of you attending more years at QCon, you know us by now. We come here regularly since 2013. It was also a great benefit to our project coming here, so we'll be always happy to join again. So just quick words about the company. We are a small company, a software development company located in Bavaria, Germany, with over 11 years of experience with architecting server-side solutions in VoIP environments. We covered both wholesale as well as retail business, and by now we kind of understand what means a serious live outage or real-time processing constraints. The project CGRateS was born out of our needs of providing a real-time billing solution to our customers. We used to install VoIP platforms for our customers and configure them to up to medium-sized operators. And we were in need of having a reliable real-time billing solution. This is how CGRateS came up. The initial idea was sometimes in 2010. We started pushing the code on GitHub on 2012. The code itself is written in Go, so we are one of the early adopters of Go. When we started, Go was in weekly release, so we kind of love walking on dangerous ground. So regarding the software, we called it real-time enterprise billing suite. People come to us for a billing system. We tell us it's not a complete billing system. We do that on purpose. You don't have a web interface and you don't have invoicing module for it. And this is also because most of our customers want to put their own fingerprints on the software, and they also have their own invoicing there. So they will not make a revolution in their network and insert a completely new billing system. This is why we decided to keep it as an engine. So it should be also easily pluggable into existing stuff which you have out there. You should be able to also accommodate new components in the future. For example, adding a new communication switch or SMS service, because the whole stuff it's pluggable. And we are non-intrusive, so we don't force you routing through the switch of our choice or telling you how to administer data which we provide back. So the whole thing goes in a shared information architecture. So we pass you some information, and whether you use that or not, it's your call. The whole stuff, it's open source. The full sources are available on GitHub. We don't have any private repository with enhancements or private features. We don't do that. We were asked to do that, but it's not the way how we work. So you will find all what we have on our GitHub repository. We also have consideration for community. So we respect and we are happy to have any kind of ideas or to tell us what's wrong with us, maybe. Thank you. So the software itself, being a real-time component, it's performance-oriented. For that, we have some internal receipt. We have built our own caching system, so we don't rely on external systems for caching. This caching is transactional. It supports LRU, so you can limit the number of objects which we keep for each cache partition, because we also support virtual partitions for our caching. And also we support timing out the record. So once you cache the record, you can tell us to expire after a while. All what we do is asynchronous. So this was from day one. This is part of the, or if you know Golang, it's part of the power of Go. And we do all the processing within microthreads. For those of you not being familiar with microthreads, they are sort of virtual threads. So you get the advantage that you can scale a lot with microthreads compared to system threads, where you get very quick to the limits of the OS. It's a test-driven development software, again from beginning. I think half a year ago, we stopped counting the tests at about 5,000 tests. We have both unit tests, we have integration tests, we have call simulation tests, because we support many platforms. I always show this graph. So this is part of our development over time. We still did not reach that point where we fine-tune only. We still add a lot of code. If you see our commits per month, it's kind of stable since first time when we came to KluCon in 2013. It's hard to find months or days without commits. So we are very serious on activity part. Regarding the architecture, it's a modular one. It's based on microservices and should be cloud ready. So whether you want to run it on bare metal or virtual machine or Docker environment or any kind of other environment, it should be ready for you. Right now it's AMD 64 due to some Golang constraints. Installing the software, it's pretty plug and play, and it's also cloud friendly. So in order to install the software, you just have to copy the binary on another box which has the same architecture where we compiled for. So you don't need to repeat the installation process. Maybe you can just share the binary and on a central location and run it from everywhere. So it's kind of very flexible for you. If you want it, we have, since it's a suite, we have many what we call subsystems, which can serve as individual daemons. And if you want to enhance any of these components, you can just rewrite it with your own language maybe, or your own functionality, and just make sure that you follow some APIs which we expose between the components. All our components, they talk via APIs, whether this is within process for speeding up or outside of the process. They are not aware, because we have an emulation layer for the RPC. So it should be really easy to replace them with your own components. In terms of features, we are what some are calling online charging system, pretty popular on MVNOs, because we do account bundles. We are also offline charging system. if you want to just post-process your CDRs, if you want to mediate them, it's all part of the software. It's multi-tenant. So if you want to run multiple isolated customer environments on the billing engine, it's perfectly possible. Rating engine was our first component. We support derived charging as part of that. So this derived charging will emulate CDRs and build them independently. So you send us one CDR, we can produce 100 out of this, each with their own billing details and own fields. So we can modify the fields based on your original CDR. And then this is kind of cool if you want to calculate both prices for your customer as well as suppliers and distributors and distributor of distributors and so on. Then a number rating, it's also possible if you want to also charge based on your origination. Account balances, as I told you, management with bundles. It's all built in complex failover scenarios where you give minutes to a destination, to a prefix, and so on. Session or event charging with balance reservation and refunds. So this is part of the real-time billing. CDR logging with support for interim records, fraud detection with automatic mitigation. This was part of my talk years ago. LCR with QoS, so ACR based on the quality of the routes, as well as with support for bundles. So if your supplier offers you a number of amount of minutes, you can use that with our LCR module. Call statistics with pattern monitoring. This is another useful thing because it's also part of it can be used with LCR as well. So you can build real-time call statistics and take decisions based on that. So you are aware about your traffic. Diameter, radius, server. Recently, we have also integrated support for DNS, so you can run CGRateS as enum server. This is, I thought it's not a big deal, but I noticed that many operators are using enum for their least cost routing as well. So you can get enum support via CGRateS. So you start it as DNS server / NAPTR server. Then resource allocation controller if you want to monitor and limit the channels and of your users and so on. Built-in high availability with dynamic partitioning support, so you send the calls via various engines and you can distribute the load geographically and route through the request through your CGRateS cluster. And we are always hungry for developing new features and crazy ideas. So if you have some which is not already implemented, please come and talk to us. Some of our subsystems, you can see the list starts to be big. We also support some others because they did not fit into the graph anymore. So these are all part of the functionality which I talked about. In order not to lose too much time, I'll go quicker through the slides. The subject of my talk today, ignoring all the billing fancy stuff which we do, is suppliers. And why did we integrate suppliers? It was because it was kind of a native thing to do, since we already had rating and we had stats for the CDRs and we were traffic aware. And this is the reason we have also added suppliers as another functionality which is related to what we do already. Supplier is a core component. It's internally or remotely accessible via APIs. So if you start the CGRateS engine, you can call and simulate supplier requests from your own application. So you can find, even before your customer is sending the call, you can find the routes for his calls via this API's simulation. It's non-intrusive, so we don't route the calls for you. We just, as I told you, share the information with you. So we monitor your, for example, your FreeSWITCH instance. We see the destination number you are dialing or other information within your request. And then we inject information inside your call via channel variables. And based on that, you can take decision to route the call forward. So you can also, again, decide that you completely ignore what we have recommended and you do your own routing, or you process the information which we share with you and you take decisions based on that. It's using filters, which is another subsystem of ours, as access list. Filters is very flexible. It treats all your events as some hash maps, and you can define filters on the hash map based on any kind of fields you like. This makes you very flexible in filtering. SupplierS is also tightly coupled with the counting subsystem. The counting subsystem is the one responsible for bundles. So via this, you can have LCR over bundles. So every time you compute the LCR, your least cost routes, bundles can come in and tell you, okay, you still have some discounted minutes available or some free minutes available over this supplier. So send to this supplier first until you finish your minutes. And this is also smart. It integrates traffic patterns as well. So the LCR is computed for a specific call duration, which means we will know that you have in your bundle 1.5 minutes free, and then half a minute out of the 2 minutes which you ask us to compute, it's at 2 cents. And we know that you are still cheaper than other supplier, which is with 3 cents directly. So this is why we consider that the bundles are pretty neat thing, because more and more people don't like to do billing much, and they offer bundles. Extended functionality through the use of strategies. As strategy for sorting suppliers, we have weight-based, which is simply priority-based LCR. We have least cost, which of course we sort the suppliers based on their cost. High cost, I don't know who would like to do that, but we have it available. QoS, so quality-based routing. Something what we call REAS, which is resource ascending sorting. So you send the traffic to the supplier which has the least channels in use. So you detect which supplier has the channels as low, and you send and start loading that one. Or descendant resource, again, maybe one of your supplier is popular and taking more and more traffic, and then you can send it to that one first. All these are discoverable via subsystems. And also load-based, where you can set the ratio of X calls or X% of your traffic goes to one supplier versus the other. We also have flexible strategy parameters, so you can configure all of these strategies via these parameters. Configuration options. These are the structures which you can use in your API calls. You can configure CGRateS suppliers or rating or stats or whatever in 2 different ways. One is via APIs, and the second would be via CSVs. So you can decide the way you like it. Some recent development which we did was also be able to load your data directly from Google Sheets. So you point out, you manage your data in Google Sheet. You don't have to export it. You just tell us your authentication credentials for your Google account. And of course, we don't store it anywhere. But we can then connect to Google Sheets and download the data directly from there. So it's kind of Google Sheet becomes our own interface, which is a very powerful one. They have a lot of power in their expressions, and you just need time to learn it. But we were impressed about how much computing power they throw in the Google Sheets. So you can see the tenant, it's, as I told you, we have multi-tenancy and filters for matching. You can have multiple filters for matching the profile. Activation interval to have this routing. A supplier profile is a routing profile. So to have this routing profile for specific activation interval. Sorting is where the strategy comes in. So you configure which type of sorting you want for your suppliers. Sorting parameters, again, if you need to pass parameters, and then a list of suppliers. And these suppliers are actually simple IDs. And these IDs, which is the information which you will see back in your FreeSWITCH in the channel variables. Simple string IDs. And you can interpret that based on your own needs. Account IDs if we use bundles, rating plan IDs if we have strategy which requires rating plans, computation, resource IDs for checking active channels and stuff like that, stats ID for checking ASR, ACD and quality, weight if we need to prioritize based on weight, and some other supplier parameters. This is useful because this is information which is directly injected in your switch. So you can use and take further decisions. For example, cut some digits in front and add a prefix for specific supplier. And that's it's completely transparent send there. So it gives you post-processing information if you want to do that. This is a sample of setting a supplier with list cost strategy. So you, for example, as a filter, you say, I filter based on prefix for the field destination, and the prefix should start with +49. And you can set an activation time. This is based on the contract you have with the supplier. And you pass some further information like the supplier rating plan, which should be used to decide the cost of your event. Same thing is for supplier 2 and supplier 3. And this is a sample of get suppliers API. This is similar also when you send a call to CGRateS. The FreeSWITCH will send to FreeSWITCH agent, and FreeSWITCH agent will translate to a similar API, which goes to our engine. So based on account setup time, destination, and usage, we return a list of a profile ID matched and the list of suppliers ordered based on their cost. So you can find here that supplier 2, based on the RP Special 1002, was having a cost of 2 cents. And the supplier 1 also was 2 cents, but with a smaller weight. So this is why supplier 3 was ordered first. This is also the order which you will receive in your FreeSWITCH instance. This is a sample for quality-based. We say, you see here, sorting parameters as ACD first, TCD and ASR. So before everything, ACD is the most important thing to do when we are ordering the suppliers. And additional filter, you can see inside the suppliers, you can add additional filter. And this can go up to artificial intelligence now, because we will be able to add more algorithms there. For example, this algorithm tells that this supplier 1 will also get into routing if his ACD is greater than 100. So average call duration should be more than 100 seconds. And the other will get into service always and ordered based on their quality, like ACD first. And this is also a sample. Supplier 3 is first and supplier 2 is second, but supplier 1 not, because his ACD threshold was not hit. So you can fine-tune your suppliers in any kind of ways you like. Regarding CGRateS and FreeSWITCH integration, quick info is done via event monitor via socket. We have published since beginning our own library, which we are maintaining, and this is capable of doing both sync as well as async commands. We use Park application to do authorization, so we hold your calls until we make sure that you have funds or until we return your suppliers and stuff like that. We are also syncing from time to time with FreeSWITCH, so we make sure that no hang up was missed or some concurrency there. And we always tend to charge the inbound leg because this is where your customer is. Real-time call control, we return maximum duration for the calls to time them out, and we can also force hang-ups in case of you telling us the prepaid sessions. CDRs we receive via mode JSON CDR, and we are also able to do offline CDR processing via CSV as well as XML CDRs. Just one last slide regarding LCR with your FreeSWITCH instance. We return the list of suppliers via array chan variable. This requires you in dial plan to process a bit trickier. So you need to look when you're taking decisions how many suppliers you have based on the first, you see the first item in the array. And after that, one by one, all the suppliers are ordered as supplier IDs. You can either inject somehow the supplier ID to show up in your CDR, or you can loop again. We tend to do that without RTP over a private SIP profile in order to get another CDR with the supplier ID, because we can pass the supplier ID via SIP channel variables. Some use cases for LCR, you know, like everybody does it, CGRateS supplier ID as your gateway ID, for example, in your dial plan, or as FSPAT in the dial plan, because this is simply a string. You can use it in any way you like. Load balancing between multiple IPs for the same customer if you want to. So we call it suppliers, but for you it can be the customer. DID assignment also, if you have multiple IPs and you want to assign the DID to multiple IPs, you can do this as well. Or LCR with number portability and LRN support here. So these are some of the use cases. And I made it, I think, just in time. I don't know. Thank you very much. It could be a bit boring because it's always too technical. So, but reviewing on internet will always give a lot of information. You will realize when you start doing it that I put a lot of valuable information via these presentations. Please. Okay, so we do the fraud detection via a separate module named thresholds, and these thresholds can work with the same filters, and you can set their patterns which you expect them to be fraud. So if your customer is calling at in the night for more than 20 minutes to Cuba or something else, this kind of profiles. Or you can have a list of blacklisted IPs, like people are doing this, I think they call it honeyspots or something. And all these things are available via the thresholds subsystem. Of course, you can also combine it with supplier routing. So you can check via the filters an external link to see if this is a fraud or not and stuff like that.
Wonderful. Any other questions? And by the way, Luca, are you here with us? He's came up. Beautiful.